well, I'm fatigued from this little bit, but starting to move some units on board for the second turn of the Danzig siege. The French have a couple additional units. Prussians have nothing additional, but they've recovered a bunch of their forces. We're sending them out there. Also sending the cav back out to try and defend the line over here. Right now, these two stars are not held, well, yeah, are not held by the French yet. And I didn't bring all my units out. I left a couple of good Russian steps in there. Kind of don't want to give them up, and if I commit them there, they could be gone and they're irreplaceable because they're not Prussian. And I also left the crappy 6 morale unit behind. Although I don't know, it might be just as good in the front. I mean, here's the thing. It is possible to take a morale check without a casualty, but it's not very likely. It's basically you have to be on this fire table or something comes off the melee table. The French didn't do any melee, where they probably should have, to try to push things a little harder. I'm not quite sure why I didn't, except I just so focused on firepower that I didn't even really consider it. Yeah, I think if they had done more melee, because they had bigger units, right? So they're facing these 1 or 2 step units, and they've got fairly large units now. In the marsh, yes, it's not pleasant to attack. Yeah. But that's okay. But anyway, I'm feeling so fatigued just fiddling around with this little bit. I have to head down. This is my problem I have with work too. I'm sitting at work and that makes it easier, but after about a half hour or so, I need to lay down for like 5 minutes. After the second turn, one of the things is that French have only gotten a cav across. They had an infantry here, but it's building the bridge. It has to be there the entirety of the turn, which means I can't send that over and send somebody else in to handle the building. I don't know. I don't know how important that bridge is. I seem to be able to trickle my troops in, and if I'm going to take the 2 stars, I maybe don't really need the bridge that much, and if I don't take the 2 stars, well, yeah, then I should, well, the 1 star. This one was in firing range, but then there's this one too. But if I take that star, well, or if I don't take the star, I do need the bridge, but I am sending these forces in with the hopes of grabbing that. There's no way you can have that bridge built in turn 1, in turn 2. So next turn would be the quickest I could get it built no matter what, because I couldn't have started and ended the turn in that space. I guess it's sort of an insurance factor. I don't know what good this cav is doing here. I'm a little scared of it being there. But to tell you the truth, the Prussians really can't come advancing too much. But I forgot to shoot it. And that's a painful shot. That's a 2. Which is a reason maybe not to have it there, because basically everything can die. And another move, more cav over there. Again, forgot to fire at them. Same situation. It's a stack this time, so I'm a little safer, I guess. Okay, they're good. Next turn I get shot at the same here. Then I can hide behind the cannons or behind the barricade entrenchments, but yeah, I think it was a mistake to move my cav out that way. However, the infantry couldn't get there quickly enough. I could only get 2 cav across right off, and they can serve some purpose. They can definitely serve some purpose, although their range for charges is pretty shitty. It's basically 1 hex. Fourth turn, a little bit more advancing. So far the French haven't paid a price for crossing. But I started thinking about the cav, because I'm looking here, and okay, it says not allowed here, but in the rules it says it's allowed. However, infantry value is -1 on attack. No effect on cav value. Cav as defenders are a 1, which is a little weird, because if cav are able to mount a charge in it, you would think that they're able to position themselves somewhere where they're not going to be so hosed that they only have a 1-point defensive value. But okay. But it led me to start questioning the whole thing, because certainly, regardless of what I think about that defensive value, the fact that there's a penalty for it seems to indicate to me there should be a penalty for the offensive value. But of course, you wouldn't need one if cavalry charges are indeed not allowed. It wouldn't make sense to say that. So I look back over here, and I mean, it's not entirely conclusive, but let me explain why I chose what I chose. Mostly cultivated areas with patches of marsh and a small network of trails. Other areas were crossed by small canals. Moving in these areas was simply slow. Still sounds like there should be a penalty to charge, but not necessarily prohibited. The terrain effects chart shows that it is possible to move in the swamps and even unlimber artillery, that any formation is possible. Cavalry charges are possible. Now, maybe the word not was left out. Maybe. On the other hand, you know, maybe the error is indeed what I've been reading, which is that this not allowed is wrong. Absolutely contradictory. No real way to resolve. With what I read, it sounded like, yeah, you might be able to mount a charge, but it probably wouldn't be at full strength, and I don't know what the fuck to do about it. I guess I'm allowing charges at full strength, weaken defenses and whatever, but damn. The cav that starts here in this fort would be pretty damn useless. I mean, I guess you could ride it around here and threaten the rear, but come on, man. If the swamps are not in good shape, there's no reason to have that cav if the cav's totally useless in the swamps. So I just don't know. And the French attack is not going at all well. However, I set up the Prussians this time. It's really causing trouble. The slow crossing, whatever. Even though I've got a lot of advantages, like places to run and hide and stuff, maybe engaging there was a bad idea. But what I'm finding is that my troops are, just getting melted away from the kill zone type fire, whatever, the walls. And now I've got a unit that's disordered. That's going to slow my deployment. I think I'm going to have to try to come in a little bit less piecemeal and try to set infantry up there. But I'm going to be delayed. There's going to be pains in the butt. Maybe where I have to wheel units and get them out of there for this guy to cross. I don't know. This is just such a painful map situation to deal with, this whole operational map. It lacks the enjoyable nature of the Vive l'Empereur field battles. It's it feels like the clunkiness that certain other games have. I don't want to point to anything in particular. I'm just thinking, some of the old kind of standard CRT games where you had to worry so much about, oh, I got to be in this hex this turn, and I got to be in this hex this turn. This stupid, petty little trying to figure out the geometry that works type of shit. Hey, or squad leader, or Panzerbush, whatever. Those games are like trying to figure out what your approach is, worried more about the geometry than just watching the battle unfold. You need this to allow for this in this particular game, and I love the Art of Siege stuff. I just wish this wasn't on here. I wish this was abstracted instead of trying to use some kind of, it's not really, I mean, what I was going to say is some kind of bastardized version of Evil Emperor. The only bastardization is really that, oh, well, I don't have the stuff that's fun from it, like writing orders and stuff like that, and these. But I also don't have the broad sweeps and everything. It's all about, hey, let's get the picayune little pieces in the right place where, we're maximizing our effect. And it's all that kind of stuff rather than the stuff that makes the system fun as a system. On the other hand, there's this. I like those games. I like the games that this is derived from. So at some point or another, after turn 10, 11 maybe, I don't know, maybe we'll stop fighting on this field, and there may be a period, once it's invested, that I don't fight on the map anymore. Because if the French get themselves established over here, it's a lot less valuable. It's going to be a lot harder to dislodge them than trying to prevent them from getting those spots. And I'm glad the Prussians are putting up a fight. Melee didn't look like it was going to be an option. In part, I mean, you're facing, first of all, I was in line formation, and I tried to look this up, and I think it comes to a 0. I don't know. Because I've been following the artillery role, more or less, with firepower. Oh, hey, if I'm down to a 0, I still get a shot. Maybe you shouldn't. I don't know. Maybe two guys in the woods shooting at each other, because if you're in the forest and you're firing, you have general order value of 1, and the target in the woods gives a -1. That means two guys in the woods can't possibly fight without it becoming melee. In melee, it would also be problematic, though, because in the forest, the attacker has a value of -1. Well, they will be in column formation, which means their base fighting value is 2 for most infantry. So that drops them down to a 1. Yeah. So they would be able to attack. It would just be really horrible to do. I don't know if that's what's intended. If it's intended that you can't have fire combat in forest to forest. But here's the thing: if the defender is sitting in the forest, the attacker can be in line formation and would have their full fire value, not their column fire value, which might be a 3 or a 4, -1 for the forest, for the defender, right? That's how it works, yeah. And so it seems a little weird that guys hiding in the middle of the woods, or in the woods, can be shot at from outside the woods very effectively, but then if we're both in the woods, there's no fire whatsoever. And the same kind of thing goes with villages. They have a -2 target value, and the attacker has a -2 but -1 from town to town combat value, which puts you in kind of the same kind of situation where fighting from house to house becomes very, very painful if you're using melee. And if you try to use fire combat, it just doesn't work because you're going to automatically be in general formation. You have a fire combat value of 1, and you're at -2 on the shots. Am I doing the right thing there? I don't know, but I'm following the artillery example. But on the other hand, should I be giving at a minimum of 1 on the melee value? I couldn't find anything in the rules that supports what I'm doing for the fire combat, nor for an analogous situation with melee combat. So I don't know. The reasons I followed what I've been doing is that one of the most effective ways of engaging a village or troops that are trying to hide in the woods, I guess, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what the hell that situation represents, but woods fighting would be to throw some skirmishers out there and do harassing fire. It's not going to give you the kind of casualties the volley fire does, but skirmishers could pick off targets more easily. They're going to be taking time to select fire, especially if you've got rifle-armed skirmishers like the Jaegers and stuff. And it just felt to me like, well, geez, I should be able to deploy my skirmishers near the edge of the village and pick people off and cause a problem. Again, I don't know if I'm following, if that is a reasonable assumption, or whether or not it's reasonable, whether or not it's intended. But that's sort of where my thinking was going that led me into doing this with other games of Viva la Emperor. And now I'm beginning to think with this particular one that maybe 0 combat values should be 0 and you just dunk it a roll. All right, after 7 turns, the French get a little bit of a bonus. I had to use my river crossing to get my disorganized unit so it doesn't melt away. Moving it off map now, which means no reinforcements went over, but it did give me a chance to position my units. Infantry got its places in trenches where they're not going to be hurt. Same with the cav. The cav putting itself there, well, these were screened, so I wasn't able to charge, or I was also not close enough, but to do a countercharge or anything like that. But anyway, the cav putting itself there seemed like an invitation to move a column of infantry in to start shooting them from the woods. That sounds kind of safe. Well, it's not. It would be if these were reasonable sized units, but these tiny little garrison point units moving in there, was only 1 step. Both these cav units countercharged it. In the forest, cav is pretty shitty. It's only value 1, but that's per step, and I had 4 steps of cav. So I had like 4 strength points versus 2 strength points. Got me on the 2-to-1 table. I got a good die roll. Remember, you automatically do a casualty if they don't form into square. I guess I could have tried to form into square, but that seemed like more of a chance of... Oh, no, I couldn't. I was too close. I moved too close to the cav, so therefore I could not form into square. And yeah, disintegrated the unit. And now I'm in more problem because I'm actually in range where the cav can do a countercharge against this hex by moving into this hex. It's dangerous, So the French putting the cav up there doesn't look like such a bad choice. I don't know what else to say. I'm still in a lot of pain and have been kind of avoiding playing. The only thing that fucking feels good is sleeping. Where we get to some kind of insanity, and I'm gonna try to hand wave it. The Prussian cav was going to start a charge against this infantry. Because as long as the French lines can move up, there's a problem. Okay? The Prussian cav, first of all, remember the rules here say that they can charge. Here they say they can't, and the charge that says they can't doesn't give any penalty to the attacker, but it makes the defender in a marsh horrible. Even if it's a charging defender. Now you can say there's a reason for that. And that's that these guys are maneuvering around through such broken terrain that they're exposing a flank to the countercharge or something like that. I don't know. It seems it seems a stretch, and I really think. I think the cav shouldn't be allowed to charge in here unless they're given some kind of reduction to their strength. But anyway, so what I've got here is 20 strength points, unmodified, coming out of the woods charging, to 2. And that's going to put me way over here. There's no leaders in this game. We disorder the Prussian cav. Now we're in a bit of a problem because our cav is way up here. Now, I could try charging with the Russian cav, but that's probably not going to do me any good either. Unless I charge the French cav. No matter what, there's going to be a countercharge into that marsh, and that becomes a killing zone for cav. Like cav versus cav, somehow the cav that can countercharge in the marsh just wins. Able to slip up to the side here, but I couldn't afford to get into here because, again, that's in this light cav charge range, which is a scary projection capability. And I can't really do anything. Like I can't charge with my cav. I can't move in with my infantry. But on the other hand, this cav is probably not terribly effective as an offensive threat either. It's really just creating a defensive screen because there's a defensive screen by my light cav, which will prevent any charges from the French cav as well. But the problem for the French right now is that now they're sitting out in the woods. However, remember you can back up and stuff like that. So I'm going to go back into my entrenchment so I don't just start suffering killing fire. But this is a very, very strong position to be in if it weren't for the fact that I'm going to melt due to artillery fire. Turn 10, and again, that's probably a major battle's entire span. I don't remember how many turns. I was out to around turn 15 or 16 in the Auerstadt and Jena combination. And that's when that fell apart and the game was over. But anyway, French positioned themselves and disintegrated this unit. However, then you see the Prussians moving up, harassing. One unit tried to move up here and the combined fire was too much. It withdrew. Well, now we got press against that. When this withdraws, though, there might be some artillery capable of plucking those off, which may be a better move, well, than crossing over, but I can't cross over anyway because I'm going to be using my boats to get my disorganized guy out. This has to be really careful to avoid the zone that the light cav projects. And we'll go into turn 10. Looked like the French were assembling a pretty decent attack forward, but again, firepower from various places caused destruction of one unit, disorganization of the other, and not a lot of destruction to the Prussians. The French are paying the price for this turn, really. It seems like I'm just not able to get the kind of force. And I'm running out of troops now, but it's not been a matter of, well, geez, I just should wait until I have, some more reinforcements to do this. Although that might be the best case scenario at this point. It's really a matter of, this is too strong a defense to face, especially with the weirdness surrounding how cav works here. It's like the light cav may be the problem, because they're the ones who are able to project that longer range situation. And that has caused problems back in our stat, where the fog created a special rule where the light cav became kind of this, oh well, nobody can do anything because there's cav around. You can't counter their cav with your cav, and vice versa. And that's the situation we've got here. Forgot to move this guy. 6, not quite. You can't counter the cav with your own cav, and you're in the same kind of position, and that cav is holding off any possibility of an advance. So like, this unit couldn't move forward because there's cav there. And I can't cancel the cav out because the cav is essentially invulnerable to charge. It could fail its morale check and not be able to countercharge because the countercharge in the marsh is so powerful, right? It's just like, I didn't have the cav there in the last turn because we did some cav battling out in the plains or in the open terrain where, hey, that makes sense. Cav should work in the open territory. How's it going to work in the marsh? It's going to suck in the marsh, right? Look at this shit. It's got a defensive 1, That sounds horrible. Well, in actuality, the cav, because of this perhaps mistaken rule that they can charge in the rule book, but not supported by any kind of penalties here, makes them the defensive gods in the marsh. I mean, basically, you can't play if they're in the marsh, or capable of charging into the marsh is really what the issue is. But the Prussians also got some decent fire results back. The only real advantage the French had was they blew up one of the units in the woods, and the other one retreated back. I'm kind of, at this point, thinking I don't have enough left to keep the fight up. I've taken more casualties, and I think I'm just going to fall back into defensive positions and build my bridge. I might have enough to try to get another unit into another one of these pieces, just to have more of my firepower, more of my fighting capability aiming forward. The problem with that is, I guess this unit, although that's low morale, so it's not exactly the stuff I want to be up there. This guy would be pretty decent digging trenches, whereas I've got, elite Polish units in there. So I may try to rearrange things. This is not the guy who's building the bridge. Yeah. But I think we've kind of failed here. To the point where putting my French units in a counter tray instead of setting them up on the breakdown chart wasn't sufficient. First of all, I noticed I fucked up right away, and I don't know, but as far as I could tell, I only had pulled one regiment out of play. Yet I had units from 2 different regiments in here for some reason. I don't know what the hell I was doing. Pink is pink or something. What's kind of tricky is I have these destroyed units, and I don't know quite how to represent them. Like, I have completely destroyed units, or I could represent them as a bunch of destroyed battalions. The destroyed battalions would be nice to rebuild, but they never made it over here, so I kind of feel like I should be rebuilding them as these things and moving them into there before I turn them into battalions, I guess. I don't know. But whatever, whatever I have here, these are almost all half strength that I've put into play for the full units, but that gives me still maximal number of battalions, which gives me maximum in terms of construction capabilities that I'm getting through there. Really, at this point, all I'm doing is cleaning up, getting into a safe space over here and off map here, and then we'll start the digging, because we failed once again to get the investment in play. Fuzzy areas in the old Art of Siege game, and they maintain into here. So like, hey, I gotta leave guys on board because they can't withdraw, but I could move them somewhere else during construction, sort of. So this needs to be repaired. That's really the first task, and that costs me 1. And then, of course, there's the clunkiness. But this guy is still available to move around when it comes time to move in the networks. Or he can be used for construction work, and then I've got these three. So I've spent 1 construction point. Now I start worrying about my parallels, and I'll lay that down. We're just going straight down the middle. Cost me a total of 6 construction points. I only had 5 units. I could have spent a 7th one. I built a gun gallery here. I didn't build one here. I see absolutely no reason for the rear one. I doubt I'll use this one, but I've got extra construction points. I might as well. The only difficulty with that is, I don't know. I can't think of one. Potentially there's a countermix issue, but that's actually not a constraint in the game. That's just a, too bad, dude. All right. We're not going to have any fire by the French. No movement. You're not allowed to withdraw the units you just built with when you move. So, then we actually rally, which I've already taken care of. I pulled them back, which means we go to the Prussian side, and not a whole hell of a lot I want to do there, except fire at the trenches. Not only were the Prussians fairly successful here, my firepower, I moved a gun to get more in close. Only allowed to move 1 each time. Pivoted some. Don't have any enfilade fire. At least they didn't screw that up. But you can see I waxed the whole front end of that entrenchment work. And it's one of the problems with getting close. Is they just, it becomes too easy to shoot. Having to lose so much of my strength investing here, the overall strength that the French have, that the two sides have, is about equivalent to what I'm used to in the Art of Siege games. However, a lot of it's getting frittered away here on both sides. I mean, this is not a garrison you expect in those games, nor is this. I mean, you're usually with enough pieces to cover all of that in something like Sevastopol or Lille. Remember though, this game, I can't even penetrate the walls until I can't make an assault on the walls until I've breached them. So that's, if I recall correctly. Not that there's any chance in hell of surviving, a run up with units from as far away as I've been. We're getting close enough that, maybe something could. I don't know. What are we talking about? we'd be looking at 2 to 3 shots. And these are on the 7 table. Yeah, see, those are going to cause casualties no matter what, pretty much. And casualties no matter what, you're only allowed battalions that have 2 steps. So you cannot run more than 250 meters in the open with any units and be safe. There are defensive bonuses, but they don't all make sense. So village, well, village I think might constitute this shit. But there's also a bonus for woods. I don't see any woods. I don't know what the fuck that's supposed to mean. But anyway, you really have to bring your parallels up. This, even without a big garrison in play, Danzig is well defended, you know? So yeah, the losses that I'm taking on the field here are losses that in most of the siege games wouldn't occur for one hell of a long time. It would require a lot of this sort of attrition through building and through bombarding the walls, etc. None of which we're really seeing here. So I guess that's the end of the turn, and we'll be getting some artillery to conduct the siege with on the next turn. I'm going to send this up. I just have the feeling that, you know, until we get the investment in place, each turn is going to be a full video.